So in this session, we will be talking about variables. Mainly, we will talk about how to declare variables and how to assign variables. First and foremost, what is variable? Variables are just storage space, name of storage space in your RAM. So if you want to store all your values into a specific storage space in your RAM, then you call that one as variables. Now, before you proceed with variables, there are few rules before you can create variable names. When you are going to write variable names, make sure that your variable names does not start with a number. So a very bad variable name is like this. That's not a good name for a storage space. So make sure it does not start with a number. So make sure you start with num1. That's one good variable. Even just the value a, that's also a good variable because, again, the second rule is it should not be an existing command or code. Okay? So you cannot use cout as a variable because it is already been used as a console output. No? You cannot even use the if or the different else command because it's already reserved. So in order for you to make a variable name, make sure it does not start with a number and make sure that it does not use the already reserved names. The third rule of making a variable name is make sure that it is only 35 string long. So don't make a very long name for your variables. Okay, now to start making use of variables, you first need to declare them. Why do you need to declare? Declaration means that you are assigning this specific name for a specific location in your RAM. So how do you do that? What is the syntax? What is the structure of writing a variable? So to start off, first you need to identify what type of variable it is. What do you want to put in that variable? So a good example is int. Int is a integer, stands for integer. So if, let's say, for example, num1, and you place there a semicolon, it means that you made a storage space in the RAM named num1 and having a value of integer. It means integer is the only value that can be placed in num1. Another good example is, let's say, for example, you want to store float. Float, then say num2. It means that num2 is only reserved for floating numbers. And if you want to place character only, then you can say this. No? So it means that the name is reserved only for characters. Okay, so those are the variable declarations. The reason why you first need to place a variable declaration is to, again, highlight that this you are trying to assign a name in the RAM storage space. Okay, so let's first make use of num1. So if we are going to command the cout, then you have there, let's say, let's say, for example, first let's have an assignment, meaning let's put value on num1. So num1 has the value of, let's say, 4. Okay, so it means that's the assignment value. It means num1 has the value 4. So if we are going to output that one, then we can say like this. So if we output that one, if we build that one, then we output that one. We can see here that the output is 4. Huh? So the value, what's inside num1 is the value of 4. Okay, so let's have another one. Let's have multiple variables, num2. Okay, so let's say we assign the value of num1, num2 to 5. So what happens there? So num1, let's say plus the variable, what's inside num2, then the result will be, let's build and run. So the result or the answer will be 9. Okay. So another one, let's say, for example, you are going to store floating number. Let's say, for example, another a good example here is, let's say, for example, you declared it as an integer, but you placed there a float. What happens to that one? So it means that only the integer will be stored. So if you're going to build, run that one. Oh, but by the way, you need to have a semicolon in the assignment. So build that one. And if you run that code, you can see that it is only 4. So you have to be careful. What you declare here must be also be the type of values that you are going to store. Okay, so again, let's say, for example, I'm using float, then I can say float. Then what happens if we run that one? We can now able to operate it properly. Okay, so let's say, let's have this one. So I have float num2, float num3, float answer. So anything, then we assign values for them. Let's say 6.1, num3 is equals to 7.5, num4 will equals to 5.1. Okay. Oh, by the way, there's no num4, so we can say answer is equals to num1 plus num2 plus num3. So it means that if you are going to display the answer, the result will be the sum of num1 plus num2 and num3. Okay, so let's build this one. And if we run that one, then of course the answer will be 18.1. Now let's have another one. Let's say I want to have an average. So let's say float average. So to answer that one, we can say average is equals to answer divided by how many numbers? 3. And we have, by the way, we can place that 3.0. And so the answer now for average will now become the average of those answers. So it's 6.0333333. Okay, so you can display all of it. No, you can display the values. Let's say, for example, can display num1. So the values there does not change because we did not reuse the num1 value. So it's still 4.5. Okay. Now, to make it much easier for you, let's say, for example, in this case, you can see there that these are multiple floats. To make it much easier, you can just write it like this with commas. Now, float num1, num2, float num3, average num1. Okay, average. So we have num1, num2, num3, answer, average. Those are defined as float. So again, what is this? This is your declaration. And this one is your assignment, meaning you assign values to them. Then at the very bottom, these are your output. So if you remember, or if you recall, when there is a process or the information system process, the flow there is always first you manipulate first the inputs, then of course the output. Okay, so you don't place the output at the very beginning. You don't place it here. The reason why you don't place it in the beginning is because num1 has, or even if you, let's say, average, it means that the calculation is done after the output, which is wrong in sequence. So you have to be very careful with the sequence. The sequence is always manipulate first the values before you display it or output it in the cout command. Okay, so let's run this one and play. So again, we can still see that that is the average one. Okay, so there are other examples in your manuals. You can scan through them. You can practice them. I will give you there will be some activities later on this topic.